So welcome back. This time I wanted to talk to you about Le Corbusier. Actually, because we visited his exhibition house here in Zurich, and I was inspired just to think about some basic design principles, um, and just to talk about some of those that Le Corbusier had. Um, it's also because, while we did have a few big projects when we first moved in, we don't have anything else mapped out for the rest of this year. And I wanted to kind of emphasize that when we're talking about interior design, we are not just talking about items to buy and spending money and this ever ongoing sort of cycle of consumption, but actually just to think about how your home and the space you're in makes you feel. So does it energize you when you're at home? Does it make you feel sort of hectic? Does it make you feel restless? Does it make you feel calm? Also, some of these principles obviously are subjective. That might mean something different for different people. But I wanted to talk about what Le Corbusier had in mind when he talked about this, specifically about his concept of human-centric design. Now, without getting too academic about this, I wanted to break down just two aspects of that personally I can relate to and that I think about a lot when I'm thinking about interior design. Um, so that's about the use of light and just the use of lines. So let's dive in. So, like I mentioned, we went to visit the Corbusier House here in Zurich, and you can see that some of these designs, are basically just big windows relating to nature. This was kind of a reaction to this Haussmann style that you might have heard of in Paris, where basically what he argued was that cities had become unlivable because you just had narrow streets that completely obliterated all light. So one of the things that was very important to him was letting in light. And this is very much present here in his exhibition house at this pavilion, which he never lived in. But you can see how light is used in all aspects of design here. And this is one of the key aspects, in my opinion, that really is very important in his concept of human-centric design, because this is very much how we're meant to live, right? We are supposed to be dictated by our natural circadian rhythms. And so when you disrupt that and you depend mostly on just natural light, which we may have to do in the winter months, but as much as possible, we are supposed to let light in. And so this is something that I really used as a guiding principle here in our home as well. When it came to, for example, curtain design, but also in the placement of furniture. one of the things that he talked about a lot was creating a sort of natural flow where you gravitate towards, let's say, like this corner for reading because there's good lighting here naturally, things like that. Um, so that's very much something that I would personally urge people to look into and to study before purchasing a ton of things and furniture and cluttering their homes. Just maybe spend the first couple of months understanding how light works in your space and use that to guide what sort of furniture you should buy, what sort of curtains you should buy, and where you should place those. Now, the second principle that I wanted to talk about and emphasize was the use of clean lines. Now, obviously, eh, for Le Corbusier, who was an architect, he would use that in architecture. Um, I'm not saying you should design a whole new house. Rather, I would say to use that as a guiding principle in how you design the space that you already live in. So if you have already clean lines, clean geometric lines, I would just urge to sort of use that and not to clutter it. Um, because this was one of his core theses was that clutter has an effect on your psyche. Now, I wanted to show you as an example the home that we lived in before and how it was because it was the top floor in an A-frame building. This created these sharp, dramatic lines inside the apartment that made it very visibly like jarring, but also difficult to decorate. It was a lot of like visual clutter, to be honest. I also didn't like how it made the light flow inside the apartment. So now that we no longer have the A-frame problem, I I have noticed how I feel different in this space because of the clean lines. It makes it much easier to decorate and things like that. Um, Also, for example, in our stairs, um, you have these, let's say, clean geometric lines, but it's also visually a little bit complicated. So, what I initially really liked, was putting like on my Pinterest boards, like all these beautiful gallery walls where you have a bunch of paintings in the staircase because I liked how it looked. But the more I spent time here and, walking up and down the stairs, the more I kind of started deciding against that because of what I just discussed, which is that it would create this visual clutter. Um, so based on what I've talked about, I mean, it is a very minimalist aesthetic, but I would also argue that it's not just an aesthetic. It's really a kind of guiding principle about how to live. Now, the final thing that I wanted to mention was this concept of the modular, which Le Corbusier developed, which basically, in simple terms, just meant that homes should be in a natural human scale, so not too large or oversized or awkwardly shaped. And this is very much something that I prefer in our current home as opposed to the A-frame apartment that we lived in previously. So it was very difficult to look at and decorate, and it it just didn't feel right. Um, and this is not to say that if you do live in a day frame, you have to move out immediately, but maybe you can use some of these concepts to guide how to minimize those effects on you. So, just taking into account those proportions in how you would then design your home, to bring in more of those clean geometric lines and a little bit more, let's say, order or visual order. So I hope you found that inspiring. I really did find it inspiring to think about and read about all of these different concepts after visiting the pavilion here in Zurich. If you're ever in town or if you live here, I would also urge you to go and see it. Um, and I hope you've enjoyed. So I'll see you next time. Bye.